Welcome to the Going North podcast, where you will be informed, encouraged, and empowered to embrace your dreams and advance in life through authorship. I'm your host, best-selling author of the book Stay the Course, and certified leadership trainer, Dom Brightman. Be sure to check out the goods and services from every guest, as well as the host himself, yours truly. Now let the fun begin. Today's episode is sponsored by the brand new Northbound to Your Success shop, where you can buy the wonderful logo, advance others to advance yourself in t-shirt form, mug form, heck, even a phone case if you like a phone case. Either way, click on shop on goingnorthpodcast.com, cop a t-shirt, hoodie or two, and be sure to tag the host when you do, so that way I can give you a shout out on a future episode of the podcast. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, known as GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, it's the Going North podcast, and we got one heck of a super special, awesome human for you today, courtesy of my good buddy, Pastor Bob Thibodeau from the Kingdom Crossroads podcast, a fellow top-rated podcaster on the blue planet of Earth, y'all, that's right, because my guest today in particular, my goodness, one heck of a powerful mission he is on because of some unfortunate events, not like the series novel, but definitely some unfortunate events. But he was able to turn his pain into power to be able to use the wonderful life of his lovely daughter, Aviva, to really put some good out into the world with his wonderful books. Let's give it up for father, author, entrepreneur, and survivor, Mr. HK himself, not HBK, Mr. Hanss Kullberg. How you doing today, Hanss?
I'm doing great, Dom. Thank you for that intro. I feel like I should be giving a round of applause to you, but thank you for that wonderful intro. It's great to be here today.
Woohoo! That's right. It's great with all the R's. It's great.
Tony the Tiger is great. I love it. I love that.
And it's kind of fitting because for those who probably can't see, my man's got a tiger in the background with the ultimate grin on his face with the orangutan. So it's freaking amazing. It's actually quite fitting.
That is right. That is right.
Yeah, man. So you already know how this usually goes besides North, because I'm pretty sure I forgot all sorts of wonderful things in the introduction. So am I filling in any cavities I missed about you, my man?
Yeah, I'm a proud father of four. I really love, being a father. I think that is my most important job that I have. And I really take a lot of pride in giving my full-time attention, my love, my patience, which all of us parents need, to my children. And, a lot of people say it's their most important job, but I really try to work at it as well, try to always improve upon it. Thinking of different tips, different things along the way of how to, discipline a child, or how to get them to eat vegetables, or how to get them, to sleep when they're not going to sleep, or how to deal with temper tantrums. Things like that are things that I give a lot of thought to. But, that is my full-time job, I would say, although I do have, another, other jobs as well. But it is also, it's really just the thing that I take most pride in. And I'm happy to be a dad every single day. So.
Hell yeah. Happy like a pappy for real. It's one of the few times I say that and the dad's involved. Gotta love it. Man, oh man. So my goodness. So also just gotta offer my sincere condolences, especially for you and your family, with the sad occasion of you losing your daughter. My goodness, I believe she's only 10 months and 13 days old, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's correct. My daughter, Aviva, she's the light of my life. She was just really joyous, full of love, full of laughter, just the cutest little laugh, and joy, and charm. She just had so much grace. She used to dance to her brother and sister playing music, and they would play like the harmonica, and she'd just be just going away and dancing. But that is my daughter Aviva. She also had her dad's stomach. She used to eat everything in the world. There's one story about us taking a road trip, and we had picked up some wild berries along the way. I think they're raspberries, and she got her hands into them, and we took a break. About an hour later, we looked back, and her face was just covered in red. She just looked like a little baby Dracula, like just smothered with all this raspberry juice all over her face. And that kind of captured a lot of her personality. Aviva went through a lot of difficult times in her life, and more difficult than any baby should. And as you mentioned, yeah, she did pass away, unfortunately and tragically, and to this day, unknowingly, we don't know why. At 10 months and 13 days old, last November of 2020. So she was born in January of 2020 and died in November of that year. And it's the hardest time of my life. I would definitely love to talk about Aviva a lot more, but it has been the very hardest, most difficult thing that my wife and I have ever imagined us even contemplating going through. But the grieving journey has been long and hard and arduous and challenging. But what I would say is Aviva's my inspiration, my source of light, my source of creativity. And she's the reason I'm sitting here today, because I really do love talking about her. I love talking about everything that she is and was, and what she represents, and really kind of creating a lasting legacy for her, an impact for her, and being a vessel to do that. I think that is, for me, my number one goal in my life, that I'm doing right now. So all in the name of helping others and serving others. So thanks for having me here today.
Oh, my pleasure indeed. My pleasure indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And what it, I know it's not consolation, but actually had a past guest on the show. He actually lost his son when he was his first year in college playing football, and thanks to some darn heat stroke and other complications. And he went through a rough time as well, and something that helped him. I'm not sure if it may help you too, but he mentioned how someone actually told him and the mother that, hey, children are God's gift to us, and it's really kind of interesting that it's sad that she left, but it's great that you're able to at least take at least some of the pain that I'm sure that you and the whole family are still going through to really at least create this legacy in form of books, or at least get her story out there to encourage other children and heck even entertain other kids too.
Yeah, I mean, from the day that I first became a parent, on December 8th, 2016, when my son was born, I do realize, or even when we conceived him, I do realize that every single moment that we have with our children is a gift. It is a blessing. And just to be able to introduce, kids into our world, into our lives, it's just this awestruck feeling of being able to kind of create this little human being from from nothing almost. You just have to believe in that miracle. And I know for a lot of parents it's very difficult. That road to even creating a child is very difficult. But what I would say is after Aviva passed, there were a lot of comments, a lot of people try to console you and try to come up to you and send you messages in different ways. Some of them are almost more hurtful than helpful. Some comments such as, "I can't even imagine," which you think is a innocent comment. It's kind of a standard filler comment, I would say, that people just say. But if you think about it, you dissect that, if you want to really show empathy, you have to kind of almost try to put yourself in that person's shoes. And I wouldn't want any parent to ever experience what we have, but even just try to think about, how that would actually feel, make that first step to even trying to imagine what that pain actually is. And it's the worst pain that I can ever describe. I would say this, I would have it gladly, traded places with my daughter there in the hospital. But in terms of, that comment, but there's other comments, she's in a better place with God, or God only challenges, the strong ones of us, which it's you would think that that's helpful. It's really hard to digest at that point in time. It's like, well, I thought she was in a really good place here as well. She was in a good place, nestled in her mother's arms, or nestled in my arms, and the fact of being strong. It's, I don't necessarily want to be strong. If that means I can have my daughter back, I'd rather be weak. And so, when we say comments like that, it's the intended action is obviously very sympathetic and empathetic, but as a recipient, it's almost hurtful as well. However, that being said, I do know that she is in a good place with God. I do know that I have, as a father, still think about where she is and what she's doing. And I always want the best future for my children. And whether that's here on earth or in heaven, it's created me, it forced me to really think about what she's doing and where she is, and really delve deep into what the afterlife really looks like and really is, in a way that I always took at face value, from church and teachings, just being able to, think about heaven. It's like, heaven's this glorious place and everything else. But, over the last year, have really read a lot about the afterlife and about, where she is. And I do believe that she is in a good place. I do feel her spirit, through different animals, even, or actions, or events. But, it doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. It still hurts to this day, and every minute of every day it still hurts. So, yeah. It's a journey. It's a process, and the grieving process is long, as I said, very arduous, and it's not really, there's not a finite, finish line. It's still ongoing. So, but by doing things like this, by being able to talk to her, actually, I do feel that she's able to still create an impact and have that effect on others that are really have always envisioned for her from the first time I held her in my arms. So yeah.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Yeah, because grief is definitely a rough time for anyone to go through, and it can be challenging sometimes from the outside looking in for the person who's not grieving, especially if they too may have grieved before. And it's like, oh yeah, someone said this to me, it might work for them, but not so much. It doesn't really translate that well some of the time. And it's like, maybe it's just sometimes just put a hand on the shoulders, like say, hey, my condolences, so sorry for your loss, and sometimes keep it pushing if possible, or just offer a listening ear, because it can be difficult indeed. Definitely can be difficult indeed. Speaking of,
Actually, I just wanted to make a comment on that, but that's 100% correct. I can't agree more. A lot of times, many people just haven't gone through grief, and the fact is, grief is a part of life. If you ever love somebody or something, you will grieve that day that person's no longer there, whether that's a parent, a grandparent, or brother, sister, or child. The closer you are to them, the more that you love them. That's really the extent of your grief. It's really that mirror image of, the height of your love for them is really the depth of that grief that you'll go through, when that person's no longer there. But I completely agree. grieving, as I've learned, and this has all been new to me. I've really embraced this process as much as I can, having not really experienced this level of grief before. It is a very individual journey. It's very unique. Everybody travels through it on their own terms. My wife and I have very different grieving journeys, even over the same child, um, and there's no right way to do it. There's a lot of different things that help different people in different ways. However, that's not to say that there isn't a wrong way to do it. And as I've talked to a lot of therapists, gone to a lot of grieving groups. Compassionate Friends here in the United States is a really good one. Have got to meet a lot of other parents that have lost children. Universally, the wrong way to grieve is actually not to even do it, and to lock it away, not talk about it, don't think about it, and try to lock it out of memory of your life. And a lot of times that has detrimental consequences. It can come back in different ways: alcoholism, or bad habits, or anger, or other kind of harmful ways for people. And so if you are grieving, and I know with a pandemic over the last year, 2 years, a lot of us have been grieving. It's basically epidemic to our society. We have to understand how to grieve. And if you are doing it, I would say embrace the process as much as you can, and really go through the journey. Feel free to talk about it and get the help that you do need. But on the other side of it, as you said, for society and for family and friends and colleagues that want to really help that person, just the biggest thing I would say is just show up. It's not about what you say, the right thing to say, or what you do, or can you bring food, or whatever it is. I would say the most simple advice I could give is actually just showing up, whether that means send a text once every 3 months saying, hey, how you doing? Hey, I'm thinking about you. Even just giving a hug. You have no idea how helpful some of the hugs that I've received, even months after Aviva, have just been very helpful. No words, just a hug. And then really just being able to lend an ear to listen. I think all of us grievers, we want to be heard. Our emotions, want to be validated. All of the 5 stages of grief, the anger, the depression, the sadness. But if you don't have someone there to listen to you, it's just much more difficult. And so some of the best conversations I've had have been just like this, with a friend on Zoom, just listening and not saying a word, just listening. So yeah, there's a lot I would say that our society can do to embrace grief in a better way. And it just has to be a conversation that we as a society are open to talking about as well. So
Yes, indeed. So, how have the kids been taking it?
yeah, the kids, my oldest, he was 4 at the time. My other, my second was 2. And they're all about 18 months apart. And so, the oldest, he understood what was going on. And the youngest one, she kind of thought she was leaving for a little while and she'll be back. But now as she's grown and she's 3.5 now, she understands that her sister Aviva is never going to come back physically. Yet we try to keep her present in our lives, in our day-to-day lives. We have a little stuffed unicorn that she put Aviva's jacket on or sweater on, and she hugs and sleeps with at night. She calls her Aviva unicorn. We have candles in the room, just electric candles that we light, letting them know that Aviva's always there. And we let them know that Aviva's in their hearts and in their head and in their spirits. They have dreams about her, actually, a lot. So I do believe in the power of dreams, and really just keeping her in the conversation, whether it's at mealtime, at dinner time, thinking about what Aviva's eating, or even, we just passed Christmas and we still give, presents for Aviva. We just kind of allocate like anything that we give to both of the kids for them to share. We kind of say that's Aviva's present and let them open it together, knowing that they have to share because Aviva's letting them to do it. Have that present. But curiously, it's funny that like a lot of times they they include her in what they're doing, but they actually if they're misbehaving, if they're like getting into the cookie jar or like eating some candy, and we find the wrappers on the ground, we're like, hey, who was eating the candy? And they're like, Aviva's eating the candy. I'm like, guys, you cannot blame your sister in heaven for this Snickers bar, the candy wrapper that I just see in the ground. So she's her scapegoat as well. Really funny. Yeah. So it's a riot, but we keep her in our lives in a lot of different ways. And I just wanted to share a little bit of good news. I know there's a lot of sad news that I talk about here on the podcast, but just 18 days ago, we actually just welcomed our fourth child, Liliana, to our life and to our home, and so we have a newborn, not even 3 weeks old. Liliana is just, she's our rainbow baby. She's just so much cheer and warmth and love that we have for her, and in terms of cherishing every single moment. We certainly are doing that as much as we can, which has been really good. And so Aviva's middle name was actually Lilia, and so Liliana is kind of in honor of her big sister. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to really read about or tell her about Aviva and tell her how her big sister was and is, and so it's a learning process. It's definitely a growth. It's not like they were mature adults when this happened. So they'll have to kind of live with this their entire lives and actually they've gotten to know death and grief at a very young age, which is unfortunate. But I just remember we were at a playground a couple months after Aviva passed, and Hansito, my son, he was playing with this 6-year-old girl, and like the second thing he told her was, oh, the other day my sister died. I'm like, oh my gosh, you can't. It was just such an awkward exchange, but yeah, it's as a parent having to understand how much to talk about it or how little to talk about it. It's definitely a balance and a learning process in that. So.
Yeah, kids are like, all right, we got to share our Christmas presents with Aviva. Well, she gonna share this blame too, baby. We gonna have these candies and cookies and sweets.
Yeah. You always know when they're being really quiet in the morning. You don't hear them, playing around or screaming or anything. Like, wait a minute, it's way too quiet. I know every parent knows about that. 6:45 in the morning. It's like, wait a minute. I know the kids are awake, but I don't hear them. They're getting into something sweet. Yeah.
Kids are amazing. My goodness, man. Oh man. So since you've been on this podcast tour promoting the wonderful book, heck, actually, what led to you actually coming up with the idea, or heck, even starting this wonderful book and the process of getting it published?
Yeah. So it really started, kind of the idea popped into my head while we were at her celebration of life event, where we were, it was actually during COVID. It was, November 2020. It was, peak COVID right around that time. And so a lot of people just couldn't come. A lot of our loved ones couldn't come. My father wasn't able to make it, even. And she was born at a very curious time, January 2020. Obviously, we know what happened in March that year. And luckily, I was able to work from home. I do feel fortunate and blessed for that. And so between my wife and I, we were the only caretakers her entire life, her entire 10 months and 13 days. She would be, sitting with me, playing under my desk or in my arms, sleeping. We would trade off, nap time duties and everything, just between the two of us. And so I felt that was, you talk about silver lining, certainly a silver lining throughout COVID was that I got to know her probably better than I do know any of my other children, especially around that age, and spend more time with her. And so I felt that she was equally comfortable with either my wife or myself. But she knew the neighbors. She knew kind of our close little pod that we were in during COVID, and we feel very fortunate that they're still in our lives. But when it came to her celebration of life, a lot of people even there just didn't even know who she was, or never got to experience her warmth, her joy, her cheer. And when we talk about funerals, if you've ever been to one, that we have the eulogy, we talk about all of the great things that this person did, or how he or she affected our lives, or how their legacy will endure forever, etc. Right? Those are the usual comments that you hear at a funeral, and I just couldn't help but being even sadder beyond the tragedy of losing my daughter, was that she just wouldn't get to have that same impact, that same effect on people. And she wouldn't get to graduate high school, or go to college, or travel around the world, or have these start a great social organization, or be a doctor, or whatever she was intended for, or whatever was in her future. She wouldn't be able to get to do that. And so as I said earlier in the show, I just really want to be that channel, that vessel to spread her love and her story throughout the world. I certainly, as a father, I want people to still know who my daughter is and was. And so I love reading to my children. I think it's one of the most essential things that any parent, especially with young ones, can do with their child. We do it every single night. At least all of our kids get to pick one book every night we read, and it's just a really warm way of bonding with your child. And so I also make a lot of stories, make up different stories of dragons and tigers and unicorns and race cars and all the works. And so I just became inspired to really put this into print and actually publish it. A story about Aviva's life and Aviva's purpose and her impact. And so that's really what baby Aviva Orangutan Diva is. It's really telling her story and her life and sharing it in a way that actually carries a lot of positive messages. There's one central one about staying true to yourself. There's also a lot of minor ones along the way that I can talk about as well. But it's been a really fun way for me to share it with kindergartners and third graders and nieces and nephews, to let them know who Aviva is, and let them be impacted by her message to the world. So.
That's right. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. So, do you think there might be a part two? You think this might be a whole series of books?
Yeah, so I'm going to share a little secret with you, Dom. It's I just finished the first draft of book number 2, and that a little inside scoop. You're hearing it before even my kids have heard it, so consider yourself lucky. There is a part 2, and honestly, this actually might be a series. And so I had such a really great time, a really fun time, also helpful in terms of channeling my grief in a creative way. I know a lot of times you ask authors, where do they find their inspiration from? For me, it's very clear. There's a higher purpose and motivation compelling me to actually write this. But I think grief in general, you hear about how some people navigate through it, and actually the act of creating something or making something is helpful for a lot of different people. Not everyone, but certainly, the creativity of actually, putting the words on paper, as well as making them rhyme, which I love doing. I've always written poetry. I consider myself a hapless romantic, a wanderlust Romeo, if you will. But it's it's something that I really do enjoy, and putting a smile on kids' faces. I've been reading to different elementary schools and preschools. Anyone that will take me, but I really love seeing their smiles light up. Talking about this orangutan who goes through a lot of different challenges and adventures, and conquers her obstacles, and is able to really do something amazing for her community with the power of teamwork as well. And so that's really the message of that book. But book number 2, getting to your question, is really more about actually the grieving journey, and a lot of the advice that I've been actually talking about here today is really about showing up, really about listening, and how we can actually best do that. And so it's in a fun and creative way. It's obviously not in a serious manner, but there's definitely a serious life lesson, of something that parents and children alike can actually get learn a lot from. And so I always love children's book that parents are actually getting a lot out of it, in addition to children. So yeah, I'm excited to do that. And honestly, actually wrote that book mostly on Aviva's first angelversary, the day that she went to heaven. And so I think in the future I might continue that pattern, and every year try to write a new book around that date. So
Angelversary, I love it. I love it indeed. That's right. So my goodness, you're right, folks. Book 2, baby. Book 2 before curfew, y'all. That's right. It's gonna be hot in the fish grease, y'all. I'm telling you. That's right. That's right. The orangutan might meet a platypus, even though they're.
I will give your listeners a sneak peek. It is the heroine of this next book is actually a sloth. So if you like sloths, it is a sloth. So, yeah. You don't think about those animals a lot, but there's a lot that they can actually offer to the world. So, but I will say one other thing about the books, is that all of the characters, all of the animals that you see in it, are actually indigenous animals to Indonesia, particularly to Sumatra and Borneo, which is where the last jungles of wild orangutans actually live, in Southeast Asia. And this part of the world is all is being endangered. Basically, there's a lot of deforestation, cutting down all the trees for palm oil purposes, and so a lot of the trees, the habitats that these orangutans actually live, are being devastated, as well as the other animals that you see in the book. The tiger you mentioned on the page, that's kind of Malaysian tiger, but the sloth is indigenous to that region as well. And the reason I actually picked the orangutan is you don't really hear about them too often, right? You hear about Curious George, you hear about King Kong, gorillas, different apes. But in terms of orangutans, I just believe they're such an amazing animal. The word orang is orangutan, is kind of, it translates to human of the jungle, but they're just like very intellectual, very very curious beings. And in addition, our very last trip, our very last family outing with Aviva was actually to the San Diego Zoo. We're members here at the San Diego Zoo, and we had this really long day with the toddlers, and Aviva was strapped to my chest, and we're looking at all the animals. But the the last animals we came to were the orangutans, and Aviva was just mesmerized. She was just very entranced almost with these orangutans, and watching them, jump around and climb around and eat, different fruits. She was just inspired, and so that really stuck out when I was thinking about, how to kind of come up with these characters. And so orangutans do have a special place in my heart, and yeah, I hope everyone really enjoys the book.
Oh yeah, that's right, with an I N and D. That's right. So my goodness, so this sounds like a possible partnership with nonprofits to prevent deforestation. Sounds like.
Yeah, there's a lot of wildlife alliances out there, and even trying to get this book into zoos that do a lot of conservancy work would be an amazing thing. So as you know, as an author, everything is an uphill climb, and so just trying to get in front of the right people and right organizations to do that. I would absolutely love to really spread the message of how beautiful these animals are to really people that don't know. A lot of us can't really even get to the zoo, but we all can, like, look on YouTube and actually, if you actually Google deforestation and orangutan, you can probably find there's one video with this orangutan jumping on this this heavy machine truck that's logging or basically cutting down a lot of these trees. And so if you've never seen an orangutan, definitely check them out and see how amazing creatures they are.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Oh my goodness. Well, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is, if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but you're in the current year with all of your knowledge and experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
I think the main advice I would give to myself is really living a life to create an impact for people, create a positive impact on people. And I feel the overwhelming kind of obligation almost, or overwhelming need to really do that in my life, to really honor my daughter by helping others. And whether that's bringing a smile to someone's face, um, or even doing something even much more for that, for them. It's really something that I receive a lot of internal satisfaction from, intrinsic motivation from. One friend that I've actually met at a grieving group, his father, who lost a 17-year-old son. One of the ways that he honors his son is his motto is really, I try to put one smile on one stranger's face every single day. And if you think about that, it sounds easy, sounds simple, but it's very difficult. You can be walking down the street, or you can be checking out a grocery store, or a Starbucks, and really, if you can put a smile on someone's face, you don't know what that does to someone. You really don't know, what that person has gone through. And I realize, as I live my life now with this invisible wound of losing my child, I really try to be present and try to live in the moment. I know that's cliche, but it's really something that I try to do each and every day. And so, outside of writing and being an author, I've also started a nonprofit that this is about 8 years ago now. It's an education nonprofit helping high achieving low income students actually get into universities, but more importantly, get full scholarships, full ride scholarships. And that has been the most satisfying thing that I've ever done in my career. Just being able to work with the youth and 16, 17, 18-year-olds, to really help them maximize their dream and maximize their potential through open dreams. I find that being a life worth living, and trying to live each and every day, not trying to take on the world, but trying to do one little step every day. And so today, being on your show, being able to talk about Aviva, maybe inspiring one parent to read the book to their child. That is really, something that I am, very happy to do today. And tomorrow's another day, and tomorrow's another goal, and so we'll see from there. But as I sit here today, making someone happy, or creating a positive impact on someone's life is the driving kind of North Star in my life.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about indeed. Heck, that's actually a pretty darn good goal. Try to make at least one person smile a day. Like, that's freaking awesome. Like, my goodness. So that means adding more corny jokes to your repertoire, y'all. That's right.
You have certainly made me smile a lot today. So it's it's great. It's always great to have that humor, and we were talking about having dad jokes. And it's just it's humor is definitely a part of life, and I think even through grief and sadness and everything, I think being able to still see the see the bright things and humorous things in life is important as well. And so thanks for making me laugh. I do have a few dad jokes if you want, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, what the heck. Yeah, so for those who still listen, my goodness, might as well shout out to your site and where we can find it. Might as well share a dad joke or two if you want as well. Let's give them the corn.
There you go. Give him the cheese. Hit the cheese. But yeah, so you can find me. It's at www.hansskullberg.com. I'm also on Twitter at Aviva's Daddy. So, and then my direct email, if you want to email me, that's actually the best way to reach out, is avivasdaddy@gmail.com. And I'm also on Instagram as well. So there's a lot of different ways. The book in and of itself is on Amazon. It's on Kindle. It's on Google Play Store. There's an audio version as well as a paperback and hardback version, as well as ebook version. So there's lots of different ways you can check out the book. The audio version is narrated by yours truly, so have fun with that. And and thanks, Dom. But it's just been such a pleasure. If you do check out the book, feel free to leave a review on Amazon. That's how the big behemoth of Amazon actually works. So I really appreciate all the support, all the love, and I really hope that each and every parent can really find this inspiring story to really motivate and encourage their child to be true to yourself. That's the underlying message. I think Aviva was always very true to herself throughout her 6 different hospital visits. She always had a smile on her face. She was never anything less than who she was as a person. But I believe each and every one of us, especially us children, can really use our innate talents, our treasures, our strengths, to really overcome any obstacles that we put our mind to. And if you think about the challenges that you face, it might be bullying, it might be homework or schoolwork. Try to think about what strengths you offer to really help you overcome the challenges that you are facing in your day-to-day lives. And that's not just a message to children, that's also for adults and humans in general. But I think always being true to yourself is very important. That's Aviva's message. So thanks.
Oh, yeah. That's right, folks. So there's no excuse not to grab some kind of version of this wonderful book, y'all. My man's reading it. He's got the paperback version, got the hardback edition, y'all. Got the Kindle edition, y'all. Some for the ebook. So that's why it's like, oh man, I'm kind of shifty about this whole like paperback book thing. Like, nah, fam, get the hardback paperback version. Put it on your Kindle. Set it on fire, metaphorically speaking. That's right.
I would say, even though it costs a couple more dollars, the hardback version is a much better quality, I would say, than the paperback version. But we all know kids books and hardbacks, so that is a really good version to get.
Oh yeah, it's like cats and Christmas decorations.
Oh man.
Yeah, the ball on the tree having a ball, and then the cat looking at it with its eyes, and then you just see that paw coming right at it. It's like, no, game over.
I don't know why, but I just thought of that movie, Meet the Fockers, with Ben Stiller, the little cat, the Jinxie. I think it was like right around Christmas time as well. Jinxie the cat. Oh man.
That's right. All the meows indeed. So, any parting words before we close up shop, my man?
Yeah, I would say, given that we've all gone through some form of grief, it might be, your own grief, or it might be, trying to help someone else grieve a loss, or even just the difficulties of navigating the isolation that was COVID-19 or is COVID-19. What I would say is if you are grieving, embrace the process as much as you can. Get all the help that you can. Try different things as well. Different things help for different people. I'm not gonna say that there's a cure all, or something that fits everybody, but just try to figure out what works for you. Whether that's writing, whether that's meditating, whether that's exercising, whether it's speaking with a friend. What I would say is just give everything a try, and and get the help that you need, and to help you feel better. But the other thing I would say on that is really practice self-compassion. I think that was the biggest thing that I got out of my journey, or still going through, is really being easy on yourself. Don't blame yourself for a lot of the hardships that you might be going through. And if you're on the other side, if you're trying to give support to a griever, just show up, just check in, say how you doing, give them a text, give them a call, because you never know what that would actually do for that person. So um, so yeah, grieving is a very hard process. It's difficult. It's something that we don't talk about in society, but it's easier, always easier, to navigate through it with someone else as well, with some help. And so that's my message, my parting words there. But finally, for all parents, um, as a father who has lost a very loved and dear daughter, Aviva, what I would tell you is really, cherish every moment that you have with your child. I know it's not easy. Parenting is not an easy job at all. But when I think about Aviva, and I think about those restless nights, and getting up in the middle of the nights and changing her dirty diapers, and maybe even the temper tantrums that my children throw, sometimes I just take a step back and really think, how lucky, how blessed I am to be able to, still witness them actually having a temper tantrum, even though I want to, lose my mind. It is a blessing, and parenthood is a blessing. And I just hope for every parent out there listening, don't take that for granted, and give your child a big hug, smile, and tell them you love them. So that's my only message to parents.
How's it going, my friend? I'm glad you made it to the end. That shows that you really enjoyed what you heard, and you are an uncommon finisher. Thanks for giving this show a listen. If you really want to help out the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone that you care about, or someone that needs to hear this message, because we want to spread this podcast around like butter on bread, if that's your type of thing. And if it's not your type of thing, still spread it around anyway, because good stuff needs to be shared with good people like yourself.